Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time zone you're in. Welcome to Sip and Talk. I'm Sunny.
And I'm Joe. Welcome, everyone. This is a discussion about, well, taking back control of your brain. Because in the absolute information bombardment of 2026, focus is your most scarce asset.
Okay, I have to be completely honest right out of the gate. I was just looking at my screen time metrics for today, and I swear I almost dropped my oat milk on the floor.
Let me guess. Your scrolling time completely dwarfed your actual reading time again.
Oh, totally. Like, not even close. It is so out of control. Lately, my brain feels less like a, functioning, cohesive organ and more like it's been shredded into tiny pieces of confetti.
Well, the confetti feeling is completely normal. I mean, it's not great, but it is a highly documented physiological response to your environment. In neuroscience, it's known as the dopamine loop.
The dopamine loop.
Yeah. When you train yourself to expect a massive plot twist or a new visual stimulus or a punchline every 15 seconds on a short video feed, your prefrontal cortex basically packs its bags and goes on vacation.
And the prefrontal cortex is the part that handles the heavy lifting, right? Like sustained attention.
Precisely. It handles complex decision-making, impulse control, deep focus. People generally walk around assuming their brains are fixed, static objects. You get what you're born with, and that's it.
Which is so not true.
Right. The biological reality is that your brain is being actively remodeled every single day by your scrolling habits. And right now, for the vast majority of people, the architectural direction of that remodel isn't looking too good.
Wow, okay. I mean, just the word remodeled makes me feel like there is heavy construction equipment operating inside my skull. But to all our Sip and Talkers tuning in, that is exactly why we are doing this today.
Exactly.
Our mission today is not about figuring out how to become a sudden genius overnight. This is about defense. We are launching a full-scale battle for the brain.
It really is a battle.
We're going to tear down the junk science we all grew up believing, and then we're going to look at the clinical data on how to actually prevent cognitive decline, boost memory, and protect your focus.
Because right now, deep focus has absolutely become your most valuable asset. We're going to break down why cognitive offloading is physically making us less sharp, and how you can scientifically retrain your 1.5 kilogram supercomputer.
So let's formally ask the question for today's discussion. Is your smartphone rewiring your brain?
To really grasp the threat, we first have to understand the baseline.
Right, because I feel like we all grew up with these supposed facts about the brain that turn out to be total fiction. Let's start with the absolute biggest rumor out there. You know the one?
Oh, the 10% myth.
Yes, the whole humans only use 10% of their brains thing.
It is a remarkably persistent myth. But if you look at the biology, it makes zero sense. The Mayo Clinic and countless functional MRI scans have conclusively proven that nearly 100% of your brain is active.
Even when you're sleeping, right?
Even when you're dead asleep. Different areas are always firing.
I always thought about it like a smartphone battery. The idea that we only use 10% is like assuming your phone is only using 10% of its battery just because you only have one app open on the screen. It completely ignores all the background processing.
That's a really great way to look at it, especially when you consider the energy cost. Your brain only accounts for about 2% of your total body weight, but it consumes a massive 20% of your daily energy intake.
So it's an absolute energy hog.
Exactly. And evolution is incredibly ruthless when it comes to efficiency. Nature would never, ever sustain a massive, calorie-draining organ if 90% of it was just sitting there doing absolutely nothing.
Right. Nature does not pay the rent for real estate it doesn't use. And that obsession with efficiency is exactly why another idea we all grew up with is completely wrong, too.
The left brain versus right brain personality test.
Yes. People proudly claiming, oh, I'm a logical left brain person, so I'm naturally good at math, or I'm a creative right brain person, so I'm an artist.
It's a fun party trick, but scientifically it's false. A massive study out of the University of Utah analyzed over 1,000 brains, and they found zero evidence of side dominance.
So nobody is actually right-brained or left-brained?
No.
Yeah.
Now, it is true that certain specific tasks localized to specific areas. Language processing, for example, tends to happen mostly on the left side.
Okay.
But if you are doing anything complex, whether that is solving a high-level physics equation or painting a beautiful landscape, it requires intense, full-brain collaboration. The two hemispheres have to talk to each other rapidly across the corpus callosum.
Which is like the neural bridge connecting them, right?
Exactly.
Which means you aren't just one half of a brain walking around. But I think the danger of these myths, especially the one that says our brains are static and set in stone by the time we reach adulthood, is that they give people a built-in excuse to give up. Well, think about how easy it is to say, oh, I'm in my 40s, I'm too old to learn a new language, or I'm just not wired to understand new technology. We treat the adult brain like it's fully baked, like it's all downhill from your mid-20s.
Which is completely false. Based on some incredible presentations from researchers like Dr. Laura Boyd, we know that's just not how it works.
Right. Her research on neuroplasticity is amazing.
It really is. What her research highlights is the undeniable reality of structural reorganization in the brain. It happens throughout your entire adult life. There is no biological age limit on this.
Wow.
For a long time, the medical community thought you were born with a set number of neurons and you just slowly lost them as you aged. But now we understand the mechanics of neurogenesis.
Which is the actual growth of new neurons. Right?
Exactly. And this can happen at 50, 60, or 80 years old.
So if our brains are highly plastic, it means we are the ones responsible for the remodel. If I want to change the layout, how does that physical rewiring actually happen?
Well, when you learn something new, your brain changes in 3 distinct ways. The first is chemical. This happens instantly.
Okay, chemical.
It is simply an increase in the concentration of chemical signals transferring between your existing neurons.
So this is the really fast stuff. Like, when I first pick up a guitar and figure out how to play a single chord, I get it right once, but if I put the guitar down for a week, I've completely forgotten it.
Exactly. Chemical changes are fantastic for short-term memory or a quick upgrade in a motor skill, but the effect fades fast. If you want mastery, you need the second type of change, which is structural.
And structural means actual physical changes.
Yes, the physical alteration of the connections between neurons. And a classic, undeniable example of this is the London taxi driver study.
Oh, I have read about this. The mental map they have to build is insane.
It's called the knowledge. To get their license, these drivers have to memorize a painfully complex map of tens of thousands of London streets, landmarks, and routes. It takes years of studying. And when researchers took MRI scans of these drivers' brains, they found that the hippocampus, the specific area responsible for spatial memory, had actually grown significantly larger compared to the average person.
They literally grew their internal hardware just by thinking and studying. That is wild. I like to picture the brain not as a hard drive, but as a really dense forest.
The forest, okay.
Yeah. So the chemical change is like walking through the brush once. The structural change is what happens when you walk that exact same path every single day for a year. You trample down the weeds, the dirt gets packed down, and eventually it becomes a wide, clear hiking trail.
That is actually a highly accurate visualization. And once that wide hiking trail is built, you experience the third type of change, which is functional.
Functional. Got it.
Functional changes mean that specific brain networks become highly efficient. Through repetition, the brain figures out how to activate these networks faster, with significantly less effort and energy.
But the catch here is the catalyst, right? What actually triggers the brain to say, hey, we need to build a wider trail? It's our behavior. Dr. Boyd emphasizes that there is no magic pill for this.
No. You have to put in the work, and more importantly, the work has to be hard.
Oh, of course it does.
This is a concept called desirable difficulty. The struggle is the actual trigger. When you experience friction or frustration during learning, that friction is the chemical signal telling your brain that structural change is required.
Wait, really?
Yes. If a task is too easy, your brain doesn't bother to waste the energy remodeling.
So the intense frustration I feel when I'm trying to figure out a completely new piece of audio software for our show, that feeling of my brain hurting is literally the physical sensation of building new neural pathways.
Exactly. The friction means it's working. And this completely debunks that famous 10,000-hour rule we always hear about.
Oh, the idea that if you just mindlessly practice anything for 10,000 hours, you'll become a master?
Right. It is far too simplified, primarily because it ignores human variability. Just as modern medicine is moving toward personalized treatments based on specific biomarkers, we need personalized approaches to learning.
Because everyone's baseline is different.
Exactly. Your brain's structural baseline is unique, so your learning strategy needs to be unique. You need targeted friction.
But if we look at this from another angle, neuroplasticity is a massive double-edged sword. I mean, if practice makes perfect, then practicing bad habits makes those bad habits permanent too.
That is the dark side of plasticity.
Right. If my brain is incredibly efficient at remodeling itself based on what I do, and what I do for 3 hours a day is mindlessly scroll through an algorithmic feed, then I am actively hardwiring a distraction machine into my own head.
And it's a global issue. For instance, look at stroke rehabilitation. Strokes are a leading cause of long-term disability worldwide. Rehab relies entirely on the brain's plasticity to wire around the damaged areas.
Wow, so plasticity is literally a matter of life and death.
It is. And yet, on a daily basis, a massive portion of the population is squandering that incredibly powerful tool on social media.
Which brings us right to the digital threat. Let's look at the physical toll smartphone overuse takes on those brain structures. What is actually happening when I spend an hour scrolling?
Well, when you are scrolling, you aren't engaging in deep focus. You are engaging in high-frequency task switching.
Task switching, because of all the different posts.
Right. Every new post, every new video is a micro-context shift. And every time you see something novel, you get a tiny hit of dopamine. Over time, you're structurally training your brain to constantly crave novelty rather than sustained attention.
Ugh, that makes so much sense.
And it physically weakens the neural pathways connected to the prefrontal cortex, your center for impulse control and complex logic.
So it's not just that I'm being lazy. My brain is actually losing its physical capacity to hold on to complex thoughts. I notice this the most with reading, honestly.
Yeah.
The difference between reading a physical book and reading an article on my phone is staggering.
That comes down to linear versus nonlinear reading. Reading a physical book requires complex logical deduction. You have to hold concepts in your working memory over a long period.
Right.
But scrolling is nonlinear. You are simply skimming for keywords. You are barely processing the surface level of the information. Prolonged skimming physically weakens the specific neural circuits required to engage in critical thinking.
And then there is the cognitive offloading phenomenon. We know that any piece of information is just a quick search away, so our brains literally lower their memory and coding strength.
It's the Google effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't bother remembering the actual information, we just remember where to find it.
It is an evolutionary efficiency mechanism gone rogue.
That.
Why spend the energy storing the data if the device in your pocket holds it?
I always think the GPS effect is the perfect analogy for this. Think about how relying on navigation apps has made an entire generation of people directionally challenged.
Myself included, to be honest.
Right. Because the app tells you exactly when to turn left and when to turn right. You never have to look at the landmarks. You never accidentally take a wrong turn and stumble onto a weird, hidden little coffee shop on a side street.
You lose the element of surprise.
Exactly. You lose the serendipity of exploration. And if we apply that to our memory, if your brain is empty because you've offloaded all your knowledge to the cloud, where do your ideas come from?
That's a great question.
Inspiration isn't magic, you know. It's just a new, unexpected combination of old information. If your neural pathways are empty, your ideas are going to be empty.
That is a profound point. And if we zoom out and connect this to the broader societal picture, what we are looking at is the threat of cognitive stratification.
Cognitive stratification. Break that down for me.
It means a society splitting into different tiers based on brain function. As technology pushes the masses toward constant skimming and distraction, those few individuals who actively resist the algorithm, the people who protect their prefrontal cortex, will have a massive advantage.
Because they can still focus.
Exactly. They are the ones who will hold the high-level creative, strategic, and decision-making roles in the future. The rest of the population risks becoming dependent on the feed for their next thought. Your focus is the most valuable economic resource you have. It is a global battle for neural capital.
Wow. A battle for neural capital. That is a heavy concept, but it makes complete sense. So if you're listening to this and worrying about your own screen time, like I definitely am, how do you protect your neural capital?
You have to play defense.
Right. How do you make sure your brain stays sharp, not just for a meeting tomorrow, but into your 70s and 80s?
You have to actively build what neurologists call cognitive reserve. And the stakes are incredibly high. According to clinical data analyzed by organizations like The Lancet and the World Economic Forum, up to 45% of dementia cases can actually be delayed or prevented entirely.
Wait, almost half of all dementia cases are potentially preventable.
Yes, through lifestyle factors.
That completely shifts the narrative from it's just a genetic lottery to I actually have agency over my long-term brain health.
Yeah.
So what are the mechanisms for building this reserve?
The absolute foundation is deep sleep. During deep sleep, your brain cells literally shrink slightly.
They shrink. Why?
This creates physical space in the tissue for the lymphatic system, which is essentially cerebrospinal fluid, to wash through your brain like a power washer.
Oh, wow.
It clears out toxic waste products, specifically a protein called beta amyloid, which builds up while you are awake and is a primary culprit in Alzheimer's disease. Without deep sleep, the trash simply piles up.
So sleep is the non-negotiable baseline, and I imagine blood flow is the engine, right? Because the brain is such an energy hog, like we talked about.
Exactly. Managing cardiovascular health, keeping blood pressure in check, and following a Mediterranean diet provide immense protective benefits because they ensure the brain gets the massive blood flow it requires.
That makes sense.
But beyond diet and sleep, there is a massive, often hidden risk factor for midlife brain atrophy, and that is unaddressed hearing loss.
Hearing loss? Wait, how does the health of your ear affect the actual volume of your brain?
It goes right back to the use it or lose it principle.
Yeah.
If you have hearing loss, your brain receives significantly less auditory stimulation. The auditory processing centers in your brain literally begin to shrink from lack of use.
Oh my gosh.
Furthermore, the immense cognitive load required just to strain and understand a simple conversation exhausts the brain. It steals critical energy resources away from memory formation.
That is fascinating. So a physical checkup on your ears is actually a checkup on your brain. Okay, now, what about actively training the brain? You always hear people say, oh, I do a crossword puzzle every morning to stay sharp.
Unfortunately, simple phone games or familiar puzzles aren't enough to build true cognitive reserve. You need cognitive enrichment.
And what does that look like?
This requires cross-boundary training. Learning a completely new language or picking up a musical instrument in your 50s forces multiple distinct brain areas: auditory processing, motor skills, spatial memory, visual centers to coordinate simultaneously.
So you're building brand new trails in the forest.
Exactly. That builds a dense, thick network of neural pathways. That density is your reserve. It acts as a physical buffer against eventual cognitive decline.
So it circles right back to the power of struggle. We need to implement everyday neurohacks to keep that friction alive. And the first one is about desirable difficulty through active recall.
Which means no more taking the easy way out.
Exactly. Stop just screenshotting interesting articles or taking photos of presentation slides. When you snap a photo, your brain does zero work. You have to force yourself to synthesize and summarize the information from memory. The actual struggle of extracting that memory is what widens that hiking trail in the forest.
The second strategy is distributed practice. The neuroscience of memory consolidation shows us that spaced repetition absolutely destroys cramming.
So no more pulling all-nighters.
Right. If you want to learn a new concept, review it for 10 minutes a day over a week, rather than 2 hours the night before you need it. Your brain requires time, specifically multiple sleep cycles, to consolidate those chemical changes into structural ones.
And building on that idea of giving your brain a spatial workout, strategy number 3 is turn off the GPS. For routes you generally know, force yourself to navigate purely by memory.
That's a tough one for a lot of people.
It is. Look at the street signs. Build a mental map. It might take you an extra 5 minutes to get home, but it is a direct workout for your hippocampus.
And speaking of physical workouts, aerobic exercise is non-negotiable. When you elevate your heart rate, your body releases a protein called BDNF. This is quite literally brain fertilizer.
Brain fertilizer. I love that.
It really is. It acts like Miracle-Gro for your neural tissue, actively promoting the growth of new synapses and drastically improving the survival rate of newly generated neurons.
That is amazing. And the final lifestyle tweak is digital fasting. We need at least 60 minutes a day of physical, geographical separation from our phones. Put it in another room.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yes. And during that time, prioritize reading physical paper. The tactile feedback of papers, feeling the weight of the book, remembering that a certain quote was located at the bottom left of the right-hand page. It gives your brain spatial anchors that drastically aid in long-term memory retention.
Now, looking at all these strategies, are we suggesting that people reject technology entirely? Are we telling you to go off the grid and live in the woods?
Not at all. This is about conscious mode switching. We aren't Luddites. Use digital tools for what they are specifically good for, like rapidly organizing data, checking the weather, finding an obscure address.
Let the machine handle the busy work.
Exactly. But when it comes to deep learning, grasping core logic, or creating something truly new, you have to switch to analog. Use physical paper, use handwriting, use deliberate focus to build those long-term neural circuits. You have to be the master of the tool, not the other way around.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up today's discussion, it is important to state that this deep dive is based on clinical data, peer-reviewed studies, and objective scientific facts. Our goal is always to promote independent, critical thinking.
Right, we're just looking at the science.
Yes. None of this constitutes medical advice. We aren't criticizing any specific groups, We're simply looking objectively at human biology to understand how our modern environment impacts us.
Exactly. Sip&Talk is all about empowering you with impartial, critical thought. We want you to take back control of your neural capital. If you found value in this battle for the brain, please hit that subscribe button for the Sip&Talk podcast wherever you're listening right now.
And before we go, we have to give a huge shout out to our good friend Mickey. You have to go check out his YouTube channel, Mickey to Life, because he just uploaded some absolutely amazing new travel vlogs that you definitely do not want to miss.
Oh, he really does create the best content over there. Definitely check him out.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the mind.
But, before we sign off, all this talk about offloading our memory to the cloud really makes you wonder about where we are heading.
It does. It forces us to ask a very profound question about the future. If artificial intelligence continues to evolve to the point where it can instantly and perfectly answer any factual question we ever have, how will the definition of human intelligence change? If human intelligence is no longer based on memory or the retrieval of facts, what exactly is our unique value?
Wow, now that is a thought to chew on. Just remember, every single time you leave a room, your brain is physically different than it was when you entered, based entirely on what you just experienced. So, what are you going to feed it next? We'll see you next time.